Hey everyone, it's Mariana, and I finally got to see Captain America Civil War. Let's talk about it. This was one of my most anticipated films of 2016, and it had a lot of hype to live up to. Did it live up to the hype for me? For the most part, yes. There were a lot of parts of it that I really liked. There were some parts that I loved, and there were also some parts that I thought were just okay. But overall, I definitely really enjoyed it. Before I get into this review, a huge thank you to MixedTees.com for sending me this awesome Team Rogers t-shirt that I'm wearing right now, so I could properly represent which side of Captain America Civil War I'm on. Obviously, Team Cap over here. They have a ton of awesome nerdy apparel on their website. Pop culture, movies, TV, gaming, you name it. And I love how soft this t-shirt is, because sometimes you order t-shirts from a website and the material is just not what you wanted it to be, but this is not the case. So definitely check them out. And if you're Team Stark, of course, they have Team Stark t-shirts as well, along with a bunch of other designs. Back to Captain America Civil War, the movie has the Avengers split, with Iron Man advocating for the team being controlled by the UN and Captain America believing the decisions should be up to the heroes. Other superheroes take sides and conflict ensues. In the middle of all of this, we also have the Winter Soldier Bucky Barnes and a man called Zemo to create problems, as well, as if the team being divided is not a big enough problem on its own. Civil War really feels like an Avengers movie rather than a Captain America movie, even though a lot of the film is from Captain America's point of view. While the core of the conflict boils down to Tony Stark and Steve Rogers having different opinions on the same issue, it still involves all of the Avengers, and it directly affects more than two people. One of the concerns that I had going into this was that I didn't know if the movie would do a good job presenting both sides of the conflict, and I have to say the filmmakers did a really good job with this. Even though I wasn't particularly swayed by Tony Stark's argument, it was still pretty well balanced, and both sides had a level of selfishness to them as well, so it didn't look like a straightforward wrong versus right thing or anything like that, and I really appreciated that I could see both sides of the conflict. There is some really great looking and well choreographed action in this film, and that particular scene at the airport that you can see in the trailers is one of the best MCU action scenes to date. Of course, it's not the only scene, but I have to say overall the action definitely blew me away, and it's one of the best parts of this movie. And speaking of action, I do have to mention that the title Civil War is a pretty big exaggeration of what actually happens in this film. The same way as the Age of Ultron was more like a few days with Ultron, Civil War is more like 10 people get into a disagreement and there's a fight. I do understand that it's based on the Marvel event in the comics, and that a title like this one will generate a lot of excitement, but at the same time, the scope of the event in the comics is so much bigger. There are so many people involved that when you look at the movie, it just doesn't feel like an appropriate title. I have to say though, after seeing this, I am very excited for the standalone Black Panther movie, even though it's going to be a while until that comes out. But Civil War did a great job introducing the character. I think there are a lot of places they can take this character now. I loved the fighting style, generally the way he moved and everything. It looked really cool, and I was really impressed with the fact that even though this isn't his movie by any means, they still managed to fit in some character development with Black Panther. Now, I know everyone is raving about Tom Holland as Spider-Man in this, and hear me out on this one. I feel like people are more excited about Spider-Man finally being a part of the MCU rather than what they were actually presented with in the movie. Yes, Tom Holland seems like an appropriate Peter Parker, but there really isn't anything mind-blowing about Spider-Man in this movie to generate that kind of buzz. First of all, when he's introduced, his first major scene is kind of like, we interrupt this movie in the middle to introduce yet another character. And his other major scene, which is what we saw in the trailer, is the airport fight, which is one of the best scenes in the movie in general because it's a great epic fight scene. It's not a great scene because Spider-Man is in it. It's a great scene because we see all of the Avengers fighting and quipping for a while, and the choreography is great. Don't get me wrong, of course Tom Holland did a good job and he fits the role from what it looks like, and I don't dislike him. I'm curious what they're going to do with this character in his standalone movie, but I just don't quite understand why some people say that he pretty much stole the show in Civil War. I just can't agree with that. And then there is the villain Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, who I'm a little bit conflicted about. On one hand, you can definitely understand his motivations and his character makes sense eventually, but I really wished they went further with his character and explored him a little bit more. His character is kind of in the background most of the time. He shows up throughout the movie, so you don't really forget about him, but he definitely doesn't feel like the leading villain. And Daniel Bruhl, who is a really good actor, is very underused in this movie. I really wished that they either gave him more to do or maybe saved him for another movie, because he was just another person introduced while we had so much going on already. You have the conflict between Iron Man and Captain America, the political angle and all of that. You have the friendship angle from Captain America and the Winter Soldier. You also have Zemo, which I can't really tell you much about. You have Black Panther and Spider-Man being introduced. You have the Iron Man side of things, his personal issues and his ego. There is so much going on in this movie, and I do have to applaud the directors and the writers for juggling so many storylines and actually making it all work together. But it does make the first half of the movie almost a slow burn. The opening action scene is a lot of fun and it triggers what happens next, but then afterwards you have about an hour of just straight up setup that you kind of have to go with and trust that it's going to be worth it in the end, which it is, but it also makes it obvious that the movie gets better the further you get into it when things actually get going. Guys, I know it may seem like I'm criticizing this movie a lot, but I promise I did really enjoy it and I would eventually like to see it again. I don't think I need to tell you about how Robert Downey Jr. is great as Iron Man and how Captain America and Chris Evans are like the same person, and all of the people that we've seen before, we know they're great and we know Marvel can make really good movies, but I don't think this is the best MCU movie, nor do I think this is the best Captain America movie. I think the best Captain America movie is still The Winter Soldier, and I have to say I connected to that movie emotionally much more than I connected to Civil War. I would definitely put Civil War in my top 5 MCU movies. I still really liked it, and as far as rating it goes, I would give it a solid 4 out of 5 stars. If you are a fan of the superhero genre and you haven't seen Captain America Civil War yet, what are you doing? Absolutely go see it. It is fun, even though it's 2.5 hours and it kind of feels like 2.5 hours. That's it for my review of Captain America Civil War. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie because I know most of you have probably seen it already. So let's talk about it in the comments below. Do warn people for spoilers in case there are people who haven't seen it yet, but there is a lot to talk about that I haven't really discussed in this video. So I would love to know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an awesome day and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!